back at it again, showing you how to make some stupid money. This time I'm going to go maybe a little bit more in depth with some clip art sort of things, but still real basic once you get the, I guess, basics down as far as how to do the clip art sort of stuff. But again, just for inspiration, we can hop over to Etsy and look through a bunch of different examples. It could be as simple as finding a clip art of a mountain silhouette and cutting that out and selling that. You can get clever with some of your things. These Bigfoot sort of signs can be kind of fun. Maybe I'll make an example of this key ring to show you. And then maybe go into how to do something like this with some I've done in the past. So let's do the Bigfoot one. Now in Torchmate, there's a couple different ways you can bring in some images. Because I've done videos on this already, I'm not gonna go in too much detail as far as how I'm doing some stuff, just because you should be able to find that in one of my other videos. But I'm gonna import this Bigfoot I've got. It's a PNG, and that's why I've got to import it. I'm gonna click, and it brings in that image. And in order to create lines for this, I'm gonna double click on it. Brings up this menu here, and I'll click on the vectorization, then close, and separate the two, delete that guy. And now I've got my line drawings, but it's got a weird sort of frame around it, so we've got to edit that. And if I double click on it right now, it's bringing up a group viewer because it's got different objects in it. So we're going to go arrange, break path. That way, when I come in here individually, I can edit these items. Now, because I'm going to have to break this line and this line to get them to join, I know I'm going to have to connect this outside line to this line. So I'm going to go ahead and arrange, connect path. Now when I double click, it brings up all the nodes. I'm gonna just come through and delete these. Well, first I gotta break this one, because if I look right, yeah, I've got it connected down there. So I'm gonna hold down on my right clicker and move it down, and that breaks this line for me. I'm gonna delete it, delete it. I'm gonna delete this one. I'll come down and break this line, delete that guy, highlight these two and hit J on my keyboard, and that joins that line. I'm gonna hold down on my right clicker and move it to the dot node. That'll allow it to round the edges. I'll come up to his head. Right now, these lines are separated, so I'm gonna highlight that, delete it, and come in here, highlight both, click J on my keyboard, it joins it, then hit apply. Now my squatch is ready to be edited. Now I need some trees. I've got a few that I like to use, so I'll hit acquire image, scan and trace, next. I'll browse my computer, next. I'm gonna look for, I'll just type in tree silhouette, open, next. Adjust this white threshold by just clicking somewhere on here. Next, complex with detail, next, apply. Here we go, finish. Now, when you look at this tree, it's got these little whatever down here at the bottom. So arrange, break path. Now I can highlight that and get rid of it. So I've got this tree, bring it up next to him, and now I want some pine trees. So acquire image, scan and trace, next, browse, next. And you can find all these different clip arts on Google. Just type in pine tree silhouettes or tree silhouette and just find one you like. I'm gonna hit finish. Now, the only one of these trees I actually like is this second one here. So I'm gonna click it, hit arrange, break path, delete this one, delete those two, and now I've got my pine tree. So if I'm gonna make my little makeshift scene here, I'm going to stretch this guy, make him a little bit taller, Control D will duplicate. Bring this one back down, make it a little bit shorter, and duplicate it again. Then just make a bigger tree to sit next to that. Yeah, it looks all right. All the while making sure that all these are kind of about the same height as far as off the ground goes. Then I'm gonna duplicate this again, just because this tree seems like it needs a friend. I sound like Bob Ross. Shrink Bigfoot down a little bit, squatch. And this tree, make it a little bit smaller. Bring it next to him just a wee bit. Bring this tree over. Hit Alt S. Yeah, it's looking all right. Okay, now that I've gotten all these items kind of put on here the way I want it, I need them joined on bottom. Now, you could just draw a line and get it welded, but I'm just gonna be lazy with it. Hit my rectangle, click and drag across, and I'll just make this 3/8. Hit enter, and I'll make sure that all these pieces are just gonna touch the bottom or top of this bar I just made. Bring him down so he overlaps that just a smidge. This tree, I'm just gonna edit these lines so that it'll overlap that cube without having to move it too much. All right, hit apply and just use the arrows on my keyboard, get it down some, and that pine tree's looking fine. So now if I'm gonna make a key holder, I'm gonna make it a little bit more unique. So I'm gonna come up to my text tools and type in here. I've got this font I found on defonts.com. I'm gonna type out believe, because I mean, if Sasquatch can believe in himself, why can't you? All right, now I've got it so that it's about the same size as my bar here, and I'll size that up later, I guess. And before I do any editing, arrange text to graphic. Now this bar, so I don't have to make it again, I'm gonna hit Control D, bring it down to the bottom, just so it's overlapping the bottom letters. And I want the bars to be even, so I'm just gonna highlight this top rectangle and hit C to center. Now they're the same left and right, so one's not more one way than the other. Now I've got all my pieces minus what the keys are gonna be hanging on. Now, to make these parts that are going to be bent, we're just gonna come over and make a shape tool. And I'll make this guy, well, 3/8 again. And 1 7/8 inches looks about what it is. We want it to be overlapping. And I'm going to round the edge of that just so that's not got a sharp point. Get it to overlap my rectangle just a smidge. And for the sake of time, I'm not gonna go through and center all these guys. I'm gonna just do them like every 2 inches. Control D is what I'm doing. All right, that didn't really even out all that well, but doesn't matter because this is just an example for you guys. So now that I've got all my pieces, I haven't done any welding yet. What I would maybe suggest is before you do any welding, because sometimes you may have someone who says, oh, I really like this, but can you take the Bigfoot out and put something else there? then what you do is I would hit Control D and just save this guy off somewhere else. That way you can open this job again and edit it, change the word or change the Bigfoot for something else. And you don't have to go in and do a lot more editing or recreate the whole thing, because right now everything's still separated. Now I'm just gonna get lazy and highlight the whole job and do a basic weld. Now all these pieces are all connected. After this is cut out, you would come in here with a brake, or however you can bend these pieces in whatever shop you're in, and bend them up, and you got your key holder, right? Then you would make your tool paths, machine, grade tool path, male, basic, 100 on the feed rate, hit OK. It's saying that these areas are a little bit small. It's not gonna be able to create a lead in, which is fine. And there's that little key ring holder you could sell for 30, 40, 50 bucks, whatever, right? So I'm gonna move this guy out of the way. And like I mentioned, if someone said, oh, can you change that and put something else in there? We're gonna do that. So for example, if someone wanted an elk right there, I'm just gonna come up, acquire image, scan and trace, next, browse my computer. Look for the elk I like, just adjust the black or the white threshold, logo convex detail, apply, hit finish. Oop. Now I've got my elk that I can come up here and replace Squatch with. So I'm going to size this guy, get him to be a little bit smaller so he fits proportion wise. Right? Now I've got my bull elk in there. I would maybe go in and delete the shrubbery that's around him. But again, you could then take this sign and you could delete these and delete the word. And come in and type something else like the monies. If someone were to say, hey, could you make a family name sign like this? Well, instead of recreating all the trees and all that stuff that I'd made already, I'm just gonna come in, delete believe, and bring in the monies. All right, saving me time, just because I know that I may be using some of these pieces for some other job. So I like to cheat that way so that I don't have to recreate everything, right? So there would be a family name sign. You could then even put a ring around it, whatever you wanted to do. An example of one I've done in the past, I'm going to hit import and bring in one of my family. Let's see, elk. Family sign blank. So I've saved this as a blank, like I just mentioned. I'll click and bring that in here. And I've got this scene already done. I've got the mountain put in there. I've created this to where I've taken the shrubbery away already. And then if someone liked this one, I could just put their last name right here and call it good. That way I don't have to recreate it. Another example would be an elk address blank. Let's say somebody really liked this one, but they didn't want it for their address. You could then put the monies or whatever the last name is in here and use that. It's just a lot of different ways you can save yourself some time if you just kind of, all right. As far as like adding other pieces to this, it's just basic welds. That first option here, basic weld, and you're good to go. All right, get after it, get building, get making some money.